Are you a paper crafter that loves creating those dimensional projects, but you want to take it to the next level? Today I'm going to share my secrets to creating a vellum rose. This is one of my top techniques that crafters from all over the world have been asking me over and over. They're like, Emmalou, I want to see how you create the vellum rose. So today we're going to show you how to create this beautiful vellum rose, step-by-step techniques. You'll love it. It's an easy process once you get started. To get started with the vellum rose, we're using the classic rose stamp and the coordinating classic rose die. And I am stamping this image twice. We're using 2 of the big one and 1 of this size, and then we're using 1 of each of the 2 smallest flowers. So to get started creating your vellum florals, what you're going to want to do is use a frost white color box ink pad. This is a pigment ink. Mine looks a little bit darker. That's because I added a darker color to the top accidentally. I'm sure you've never done anything like that. But just make sure that your stamp is well inked and you'll stamp down on the vellum. I prefer to use a 29-pound vellum, and you can see the image just a little bit. And then I'm pouring over embossing powder. This is heat embossing powder, and this is a Ranger seafoam white embossing powder. I find that Ranger embossing powders paired with the frost white or pigment inks makes that it doesn't flake off. So you would just heat emboss this and die cut it out with the coordinating die, and you will achieve all these flowers cut out and ready to use for your vellum rose. So when you're creating this beautiful rose, the first thing you want to do is add the color. So we'll pull this aside, and I'm going to color the largest one. And when I color, I like to color this on the back, and I'm using a Teal Zeal Memento ink, and I just chose that color because the papers within the Blushing Rose collection really work very beautifully with this color. You don't have to worry about blending it out too much, just because some of that color or that inside part will be hidden once you start gluing the flower together. So you'll add that to the back. I like to use a dye-based ink on the back of vellum so that it dries very quickly and that it doesn't smudge for you. So that's all you need to do at this point, and then we're ready for the shaping. To shape the base flower, you'll do the exact same shaping technique for all sizes with the exception of the rosebud. So to start out, what you're going to want to do is take your flower shaping toolkit. You'll have your stamp side face down on your mat, and I am using the 3mm size, and I'll just gently press around the edge of the rose. This is more of a lightweight vellum, so you'll want to make sure that you don't press too hard. So just kind of practice. It seems like every time I do shape a vellum rose, I tend to crack the petals. That is normal. I actually just did it. You probably can't see it, but once you're finished on the back, you'll just flip this around, press down in the middle. You will do the exact same technique for the 2 smallest ones, which are going to be our rosebud. The only thing you do differently is just press down. The only thing you do differently is you do not flip it around and press down in the middle and the front. So just keep them like that, and you're ready to start assembling the flower. To start assembling the flower, I like to start with the rosebud first, and we're using the hot glue gun. I prefer to use the hot glue gun with vellum. That helps that the glue sets instantly because of the way vellum reacts. So just take your hot glue gun and put some glue into your smallest flower, that's going to be your center bud, and put it onto approximately 3 flower buds, and you'll push that together. Now just be careful when you're doing this. Just hold it together for a little bit, squeeze all 3 petals together, and when you're doing this, like I said, just be careful because it is vellum and you're using your hot glue gun. So if I yell ouch at any time, you know what happened. If it comes open a little bit, don't worry, just put some hot glue on the rest of the flower and squeeze everything together so that closes. And we'll just hold that for a second. Our next flower size is also going to be a flower bud. So when we're finished with this one, you see how that's kind of cupped together. It's sticking nicely to my finger. If you're using the hot glue gun, you'll have a little bit more strands, but we can clean that up at the end. I'll flip my flower bud upside down, and I will just, first of all, just kind of put a little bit of glue at the very back. This is really hot. Actually, I have my hot glue gun on high. I'm going to put it on low to finish up the remainder of the flower. You'll just cup the next size over the top. And you see how that just kind of comes right up around it. Now some of the petals are instantly kind of bonded with the hot glue. Some are going to flop open a little bit yet. So the ones that flop open, I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue on each of those tips. And what's nice about this is hot glue is fairly clear, and it kind of creates this nice opening in the flower, and it gives it this nice open space kind of in the center. So you see how that starts to kind of take the form of a flower. Now you could just keep this together like this if you prefer, or we can go ahead and add main flowers to finish off a main rose. To continue creating the rose, you'll have the next layer stamped side up, and I'm going to add glue to the rosebud instead of this piece. So I'm going to hold it with my one finger, and we're just going to create just kind of a circle of glue as far around the outer edge as you can, so it's all coated. And then what we're going to do is just take this flower and make sure it's centered, and then scoop up those petals. So you'll just do maybe 2 on one side, 1 in the middle. Just make sure it stays centered. Move it around a little bit and push this up. Now once you do this once, some of those petals might still kind of flop open, and they might flop open, so that's okay. See, that one is still coming out. So what you're going to do, just keep holding on the opposite side and just put a little bit of glue. Push those petals up. Let that bond, just hold it for a little bit. There we go. So the reason I use the hot glue is it just bonds quicker than, say, a liquid or wet glue. And if you have a lot of those little strings in there, don't worry about it at this point. That's totally fine. So once we're finished with this layer, I'm going to flip this upside down again. And see, the base is getting a little bit bigger each time. So you have a little bit more to work on as it gets bigger. And just make sure the glue is going up. Oops, that was a little bit hot. It dripped up a little bit further. So just be careful. Just make sure you're offsetting the petals. This is kind of like playing with fire and demoing at the same time, right? So you'll just kind of make sure that that comes up together like that. Oops, there we go. So it really kind of takes its own form. I'm not too picky. It's a little bit more of a wild rose. I'll flip this back upside down. And if you need to go back in at any time and add more glue after you've put all the layers together, that is totally okay. So we've got this down. I'll just put this down on top of this last layer. Offset those petals. You see how that's starting to form? And you can pull those petals up a little bit more if you like. So there you have your beautiful dimensional rose. It's all ready for the glitter. And I like to just lay it aside to kind of just let it set a little bit. And if you have to add a little bit more glue, you can do that. And you can see how you can do the big rose, the smaller roses, and then over here I had some remaining like little flowers that I created baby vellum flowers. Just remember, when you're using the vellum, you will break some of those petals. I still have that happen to me today, but once you have that completed rose, you won't see it. Practice multiple times till you're comfortable using your glue gun with the vellum. You'll have so much fun. Thank you for joining me today. If you don't have the Classic Rose stamp and die, I have the links below for you. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Can't wait to see you next time.